Hi everyone, thanks for being here for this Jury Insight panel. We're going to run like a 40-minute discussion after we show some work, and then there'll be like 10 minutes at the end for some questions. I think we've got some roving mics, so if anyone has any questions at the end, we'll kind of save that. But yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm really delighted to say we've got a great panel lined up. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Dora Osinde, who is CCO at Ogilvy. Joey Tiempo, who is founder and CEO at Octopus and Whale. Laurel Akman, who is a consultant, creative director, previously on the creative team at The Sims. And last but not least, Rupert Reynolds-Maclean, who is MD at Biscuit Filmworks. So you've each brought a piece of work that we're going to kind of show individually, and then we'll go through and have a bit more of a group discussion. So Dora, what have you chosen? This is more of a kind of personal pick, am I right?
Yes, this is a personal pick, so we were asked to submit these actually while we were all still doing the online pre-voting before we got into the jury discussions this weekend. And this piece is called Driving While Black, and it kind of stuck with me from the first time I saw it up until the judging now. And yeah, let's have a look at it.
Cool.
We're choosing not to show the more graphic moments this morning. It started with a traffic stop, though. Officers accused Nichols of driving recklessly.
Officer Geronimo Yanis stopped Philando Castile for a broken taillight.
Why am I being apprehended? You're trying to give me a ticket. I said get out of the car.
I miss you so much. I miss you so much.
This is the world's first DWB. Equipped with transparent doors to eliminate reasonable suspicion, whatever that means. A 10-2 steering wheel that keeps hands visible at all times. We remove the glove box so there's no confusion about what the driver is reaching for. With a touch of a button, the ultrasonic biometric scanner displays the license and registration of the driver to ensure contactless exchange of information. With no trunk, nothing can be concealed, so therefore, there is nothing to search and seize. And we remove the engine because, honestly, why risk it? DWB, the first vehicle of its kind, where the safety feature is the car itself.
Great. Okay, Joey, what have you brought us in? And while you were on the in the gaming category, right? Mm-hmm. Could you just set up like what you brought in and a little bit why?
Yeah. So I chose something that resonated with me as a gamer. And if some of you guys here are gamers and play Brawl Stars, you might have watched one of their content from their CCTV at Star Park. And as gaming is fun, so should their case studies be. And this is what I chose. It's called Star Park CCTV.
When Brawl Stars launched in 2018, it quickly became the world's leading mobile shooter. With every update, fans couldn't get enough of Brawl Stars, inventing their very own backstories about the game's fictional setting, Star Park.
Welcome to Brawl Theory.
But as the years went by, interest began to wane. To reignite player engagement, we decided to tell the untold story of Star Park's origins. Introducing Star Park CCTV, an in-game origin story experience where we gave players access to unreleased security cam footage from inside Star Park, as it existed in 1995. There, they could watch live streaming footage from the past and piece together answers. Once Star Park's CCTV went live, players could access 5 different monitors live streaming from 54 cameras placed around the fictitious park. To make it feel authentic, we built a fully functioning simulation in Unreal Engine and created over 6 weeks of generative animation with more than 30,000 character variations. We kicked off a scavenger hunt for our fans by dropping time codes hidden across Brawl Stars' social posts, which could be used to unlock major story sequences, like secrets in Star Park, along with the origin stories of Brawl Stars' most popular characters. To escalate the drama, we hid clues in daily journal entries from a Star Park security guard and voicemails from confused park employees.
Yeah, one of the gumball machines, he came alive.
Fans saw Star Park change from a regular theme park into the battleground they knew and loved, generating 89 million visits to the CCTV room, and inspiring fans to organically create more than 8,500 videos of their own, with over 130 million views collectively, all with zero media spent. By the time the campaign was over, the community was ablaze, and Brawl Stars had reached its highest player numbers in 3 years. Because we didn't just tell our players the story of Brawl Stars, we let them discover it for themselves.
And Laurel, you were also judging on the gaming category, right? So what have you brought in for us?
Yeah, I think as somebody who worked on the developer side and marketing, I really care a lot about community and the unique communities that rally around these games and the huge creative opportunity to co-create with our communities and to like learn from each other and to tap into the like weird and wild that happens in fandoms. So I picked Outcats, which was admittedly made for one of the very weirdest games there is out there, Battle Cats, for any of the fans out here. Very niche, very weird, very fun.
This game is weird, and I know they got weirder cats out there.
What the heck is this? Is that a cat?
Yo, sexy legs cat.
The Battle Cats is a very weird game.
Oh my.
With very engaged players. 70 million to be exact. So for Black Friday, we decided to zag from the usual video game playbook, and instead of giving fans a bunch of deals on the game's currency, which is cat food, of course, we chose to give them a scandal.
Outcasts from the Battle Cats game are out on the loose.
Meet the Outcasts. Sorry, Outcats.
They got the sick cat, trash cat, and the stealth cat.
3 rejected cats that never made it into the game.
Outcats have stolen 100 million cat food cans for revenge.
And they're giving them away for free.
No. There's no way.
God.
There's a ransom video too.
Hello, human. My friends were ruthlessly rejected by the Battle Cats.
These rejected cats demanded a place in the game.
They took our dignity, so we're taking their cans.
And players ate it up.
Cats. I'm taking all of the cats.
Almost 4 million views in 4 days, which is insane.
Hacking the game's metadata to discover
Only one of the Outcats is actually going to make it into the game, guys, and Ponos is letting us vote for which one we want.
We released the lost auditions of the 3 cats. And fans started taking sides.
I'm gonna be voting for stealth cat.
Big cat here, vote for me.
Leading to them voting. A lot of voting. And buying. And the results were the cats meow. But sadly, only one Outcat would win a place in the game, which we announced in epic fashion.
Trash cat!
Trash cat, congratulations!
Making a lot of fans and cats very happy. For a cat in a trash can. But like we said, it's a weird game.
Okay, Rupert, you've got to follow that. But you brought in a music video.
Yeah, so I was on the music video jury, and it's an interesting one because it was probably the only one that wasn't really heavily brand entered. So it also meant that most of our category had considerably lower budgets than everything everybody else was probably watching. And I think one of the things, and one of the reasons I've chosen this is it's an example of where people, the filmmakers and the label have really pushed themselves to push the narrative and lean into narrative storytelling. And a lot of the strongest work in the category just made, it wasn't necessarily all narrative, but it all made you feel something. So this is a film by The Blaze.
noise all over the place. It's just insane.
Settle down. Settle. Quiet. Right, I hope you all had fun on your summer holidays. But most important, I hope you've all done your homework. The poem you were asked to write about an experience you had in the summer. Got yourselves a suntan and let those... There's no good moaning about it, come on. Adolescent hormones, rage. Liam, you're unusually quiet. Oh, you calm down. Liam!
Oh my God, what?
What? Come on, you're first. Get up here. What's your poem about, Liam?
It's about your mother.
What's it really about?
Nah, it's about my first time.
All right, calm down.
Nah, it's about my brother taking me to my first festival, my first ever rave, you know, like, all that, you know.
Oh, don't tell us the whole plot, Liam. Just read the poem.
Imagine a place where no one can stop dancing. The beat shakes everything. Everyone's dancing. It was deep. It was sweet. Hardcore. I felt things I've never felt before. I closed my eyes, and then everything's lit. My heart feels the beat, and my soul feels the heat. And now, I feel like a very special witness. Freedom itself, dancing in that crazy mess. I let myself melt into the crowd to dance. Connected to everyone, and kissed in the trance. sun rose again. There was no more music. It sounds like heaven with a distant kick. The wind sweeps the night dust into the sky. I can't feel my feet because I'm flying high. I was blind. think I'm in love.
Right, thank you all for those selections. Dora, I'm going to come back to you. And that was my first time seeing all of that work. And I wanted to sort of take you back to the first time you saw it. And maybe if you could share kind of what excited you about that piece of work at the time, or why it resonated with you.
Yeah. So two things I found quite outstanding with this piece of work. One, it obviously makes a point about the experience of driving while black that is, even though it's probably somewhat different in Europe, still a familiar experience in Europe. Of course, in the US has different consequences at times than it has in Europe. But the way it makes that point is so poignant and interesting and clever. You immediately get the point, you feel all the feelings, and like picking this topic and combining it with making the statement in such an interesting way just resonated with me.
As you say, it's quite specific in some ways to an American audience,
Yeah.
but also feels quite universal,
Yeah.
certainly in its message and kind of how it's handling that with the humour, quite kind of subversive humour that it uses as well. I thought it was an interesting point, Rupert, you talked about that piece appealing to you because of the narrative storytelling, and I wanted to focus on that a little bit because I think this is something this piece does quite well as well.
Yeah, for sure, it does. Because it also ends, before they, in the case film, show the way they executed it and taking it to Motor City, it ends on well, there's also no engine because why bother? And I think that why bother emotion is something probably a lot of people in this audience also feel from time to time.
And Rupert, focusing on your piece,
Yeah.
As I said, that was an interesting point I think you made about it being an unbranded piece of work, and then possibly that creates more room for narrative storytelling to come to the fore.
But it goes across everything. You know, like we predominantly make commercials at Biscuit, and we also, but I think all of us, no matter what the whole point is about telling a story. And it's, whether it's gaming, whether it's entertainment, whether it's music, whether it's a piece of design, whether it's a 30-second ad, like no matter what, you get found out straight away if you don't have a good story. And I think what music videos have been forced into doing now is, if it's going to cut through and you're going to and anybody's going to watch it all the way through, it has to have a strong narrative. And, you know, the knock-on effects in music videos is that a lot of the camera trickery is gone, a lot of the VFX is gone, and there's less places to hide. So if you don't have a strong narrative, even if it's a straight-up performance piece, no matter what, even if it's a really high-concept video, if the narrative isn't there, you won't keep the audience.
I mean, for me, that piece was, the music's not incidental, but it's almost not the thing that you take away from it initially.
Yeah, and they've woven that together, and I think one of the other things that we saw a trend in a lot of the music videos that kept coming up in multiple sections in music videos were the things that were probably going closer to working class or working people stories, as opposed to kind of the days of bling videos are almost over.
And Laurel, Outcats. I think the story element there is more rolled into the idea of community, which you spoke about, and engaging that audience. Why did this kind of piece stand out to you? Why did you choose this?
I mean, we talked, Joey and I talked a little bit about this as well, and props to D&AD for doing such a great job of pulling so many diverse voices together in our jury. But I think one of the things, as someone who's worked both on the advertising side and as an advertiser and as advertising while working for a developer, one of the things is like you definitely notice the tension between where the perspective is coming from and how you approach the creativity around that project. And that showed up in a lot of the work that we were looking at as well. And so for somebody who understands the power of tapping that community, because we're so close to it, we're close to the developers who understand the community and are creating for the community. This to me felt like a very natural way to engage the audience in a language that the audience spoke. So for me, like the fact that they dug into lore, that they created this whole cool backstory, that they gave the community the ability to vote for and engage with content around what new character that they want to pull into the game, and the way that they created, like leaned into the weirdness of the game and all of the aspects of the content that they created really felt so clearly like they knew who they were speaking to, and they did it so well. And I think that that's something that sometimes, in the broader sense of advertisers who get excited about the opportunity in the game space, rightly so. Gen Z is the first audience who over-indexes on gaming versus sport, the first ever demographic in history of history. So there is a huge opportunity there, but I think sometimes when we come at it from that mass market appeal and just think broad numbers, we lose the opportunity in speaking really intimately with the communities that rally around different games. And so for me, this is just a beautiful example of that.
Great. And Joey, why did you choose that particular piece? What made it stand out for you on a personal level?
Gaming is called interactive entertainment for a reason, and it's because even if you're from all sides of the gaming spectrum, whether you be a gamer or a fan or a game publisher or someone who's doing creative work for gaming, you are invited to participate. And in participation, we mean how do you co-create with the publisher? So in Brawl Stars, Star Park CCTV, I think what they did is fed the fans with content that will inspire them to create. This thing exploded on Reddit. Reddit was like on fire when this came out. And that is opportunity for all of us, whether you be a publisher, a creative, or a gamer, to kind of come through and add to the lore. So it's like, there are many, many pathways into gaming, and I think to me, this is a really great, I guess, way to get it out of the game to the fans and provoke them to add to the story and to the narrative of the game.
So it's like an invitation, it's a dialogue, right, that they're creating?
It is. It's like a provocation. It's like, look what's happening behind the story, and what do you have to say about this?
We've spoken a little bit about storytelling and community, I suppose, as like themes pertinent to these works, but just thinking about your categories and the whole judging process and the other work that you were looking at, I think, Rupert, you said you watched something like 280 music videos. Mm-hmm. Were there any themes or trends that emerged, through that kind of judging process that you'd like to discuss?
It's such a wide open thing, music videos, right? It's almost like the whole of commercials. So it's hard, or any film format. So it's hard to pinpoint certain things. There was things that I sort of expected to come, which there was definitely some videos that were really leaning hard into using AI. And some did it better than others, which is probably fairly consistent for AI in general so far. But I think there was definitely a rise, and it's like a surprising rise in AI use. A lot of it really came back to that kind of narrative arc in the strongest ones having it. And I think one of the things that can happen, I'm probably going to mention budgets a few more times in this talk, but I think one of the things that budgets is starting to really affect is whether there's enough content that you can shoot to last the entire song as well. And I think one of the things that I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to start happening is more and more tracks will either re-edit so it turns into closer to a short film. So you're sort of mixing that diegetic real world sound with the track to create something, or cutting the song down to fit a film length. I can see that sort of happening next, and I feel like that was starting to happen a little bit too. Yeah.
And Dora, how about you in terms of like themes or anything that emerged in the entertainment category?
Yeah. So actually, at the point of deciding on the shortlist, we realized we had quite a big shortlist, and we started talking about, okay, were there like more entries this year in the entertainment category, and there weren't. And so I think one of the big trends was there was a lot of good branded entertainment work, which I'm super happy to see. It seems that clients are beginning to want more of this work, and clients and agencies together are beginning to figure out how to actually do it well. And that then quite quickly takes us into the conversation about, okay, what's just a good ad, which obviously should be entertaining in one way or another, and what is a nice and maybe even great branded entertainment piece, because obviously these pieces compete with everything else that's in our feeds and the shows we watch or the films we watch. And yeah, I'd say the big trend of this year was there was actually a lot of good work that did exactly that, that was good enough to compete with my favorite show or my friend's vacation or whatever. Yeah.
Can I add something to that? Because we had the opposite in music videos. Mm-hmm. We actually had it felt like the heavily branded music videos felt much closer to ads, and they didn't feel specific to the format. And it felt like they were making things that were sort of overly joyous and overly something that didn't feel like it belonged in a music video category. And it's one of those things that I think brands should really think about when they're trying to step out of the traditional space that they're in. And I think there's been more experience in making really good branded entertainment work, and I think that there's a lot of trying to get into music, but I think in order to have the credibility of it feeling like a legitimate music video, the brand needs to embrace that as opposed to try and turn it into a format ad.
Yeah.
Do you think that, I mean, this piece was unbranded, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a case of brands trying to make something that fits a brief too much, and then, you know, that prevents a certain level of creativity or puts up a roadblock to that? Or what's the kind of, you know, difference fundamentally?
I think, well, maybe a bit. You know, I think clients are probably deep down a little bit scared of music videos, but would like to do it. And that's a pretty rough place to start a project. And again, like you can't, if the writing isn't great, there's nowhere to go after that. And I think that needs to be sorted out at the very beginning. And it's something that I think some of the more heavily branded music videos that were entered felt like they were just a bit confused at the writing stage.
And I think maybe to add to that, brands that are maybe nervous about how much branding versus how much to maybe not do or not say, or where do I put my logo, I think it's also about respecting the audience. They're smart, they get who supported this, who paid for this.
The logo's all around the screen, right? Like if you're watching it on YouTube or on your phone, you know who it's being presented by.
Laurel and Joey, thinking about the gaming world and the pieces especially that you were looking at here, thinking about the trends, I suppose, now and going forward, what kind of surprised you, if anything? And interested in your perspectives as a gamer and a non-gamer as well.
Well, seeing the work this year, I think there definitely is a growing sophistication in understanding gaming and the ecosystem that's around it. So we see a lot of the work, I guess, via the ones that we've seen before. But I guess it also depends on, because who am I talking to? What is the community? And what is the take-up of the community on the ideas that we are putting forward? But one of the interesting things that came out of judging, having had a diverse set of people in the room, is how these people respond to the work that we're seeing. And Laurel, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, one of the things that Joey and I were talking about this in the green room, but one of the things that was interesting to the women in the room is that the men in our jury seemed to feel one way about work that was geared towards women, and the women were actually the ones pointing holes in how we experienced the work. So where there was something that was like, this was a solution to helping, you know, professional women in esports, or this was a D&I thing. The people who were more the target were able to, see through certain things or, critique it in a more sophisticated way. We just had a different experience of the work. And so, again, big proponent of having all those diverse voices in the room, because it doesn't mean that the work doesn't have merits, but I think it's really important to make sure that you have the people that you're speaking to creating the work, because that really impacts how people experience it. And that's across the board, obviously, not just gaming, but that was something that was really obvious, because it was literally almost split when we were arguing the merits of work sometimes.
There was also the work that was advertising-led and then gaming-led. So there's always that. Gaming-led work tends to be a little more favoring the developer side. It makes you think as a creative, that's impossible for me to do because I'm not part of that company. And then there's advertising-led work that leans more towards brands. And when you lean more towards brands, you begin to think, how does this work serve the player? How is this, or is it getting in the way of gameplay? So with gaming, it's always a balance of, is it really serving gamers and the brand, or is it favoring another, or just one side of the spectrum?
Yeah, I would just add one really quick extra thing. One of the things was, I think, when it came to the brand-led creative work, and there was a split, there was the developer, the in-house, or specifically speaking to the community-led work, and then more of the, advertising-led work for brands. We saw a lot more CPG-based, broad, snack foods or beverages, clearly mass market things, and the brands playing. And we started to see really smart uses of brands that were really unexpected in the game space, and those ones were I'd love to see more. I think there's a huge opportunity to have the right brands really break through by choosing the right game or the right gaming experience. So just had a sprinkling of those, and they did really well. It was really well received, and I'm excited for more of that in the future. I think there's a big opportunity if unexpected brands lean in there.
Thinking about, I guess, more tech trends. I know, Rupert, you mentioned AI was a quite interesting factor this year. Dora, in entertainment, did you notice, we can talk about AI as well, but specifically was there more work that was maybe influenced by things like algorithms and designed for a certain platform over another, perhaps, or?
Not necessarily, to be honest. So obviously you have to mark in your submission whether AI was used or not. And certainly there were many cases that had used it in one way or another. AI was obviously there. But also when we look at the artificial reality category or the mixed reality category, there weren't that many cases, actually, that were submitted. So tech-wise, I wouldn't see for the entertainment or branded entertainment category, I wouldn't see a specific trend. There was one case in there that was a little bit of a tech innovation case. It's called Dreamcaster. I will assume that probably in several categories throughout the D&AD Awards, it did quite well. It is a piece where basically the team built a technology where a blind person could get sort of all the sensory input to do the live commentary on a basketball game. So through different feelings, sensations on his hands, he would get it in the moment as the game was going, and he was able to do the commentary. He did an amazing job. He had so much energy, and because of the technological innovation, he was on point, on time. So I think something like this is an interesting category or interesting example for tech innovation, but that doesn't necessarily connect to entertainment. I think it's overall great tech innovation.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Rupert, were there any other innovations that you saw emerging?
Similar, but in a way, music videos has always been a place where really, really young filmmakers get to play and show their voice. And I think that's something that hasn't necessarily followed in the last couple of years, but it really felt like there was a couple of examples of young filmmakers making multiple videos with the same artists and performance-led videos that were obviously made for a lot less than they looked like they were. And so Ants Live, who's a rapper from the UK, And Meta, who's I think Spanish, is a singer. They both had multiple videos that they'd worked with the same teams on, and you could feel that level of trust there. And that was something that felt good and fresh, and those videos kind of stood out in a way in that performance category, which is one that's always been really difficult. So that was definitely something that was really heartening in there. And I had to make a couple of notes just in case. But the other stuff was, it was nice just seeing some things that made you laugh again as well. There were some things that were genuinely really funny. And again, that kind of goes back to the writing thing of just finding a way to delight their audience a little bit is important across all of these categories, I think.
What do you put that down to in terms of, what's maybe motivating those writers?
I mean, part of it is just good writing and knowing that you can keep your audience like heavily involved if it feels like the story's going in a place that is sort of unexpected but completely works. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. But trend-wise, look, it's music videos, it definitely feels like there's a lot of have-nots. I think that there's a very small handful with really, really good budgets, and there's 99% working with tiny budgets and tiny turnaround, and I think that's what's forced some of the trends. I think that's what's forced AI instead of a month of post. Like last year, cash in, cash out cleaned up, and there was nothing that had that level of time and craft in it this year. Everything was small crew, shot in camera with some great, either great actors or great performance or some very homemade but impeccable VFX that was done very quickly.
Okay. We're going to open it up to the audience for questions in a moment, but I know there are a lot of young creatives here. I wondered if you could each share a piece of advice for anyone looking to kind of submit work in the future. Laurel, maybe if you could start.
I think this is good for submitting for awards, but also for putting in your portfolio. I think the passion comes through in the work. So if you're excited about something, if you're excited about something specific about the work, if it is that you really, really knew that audience and here's this insight, or if it was the coolest thing about this is we figured out how to make a platform that wasn't meant to do this thing. I really think leaning into where you are the most excited about the innovation and leading with that story always helps it land for the juries and for your audience. The passion comes through. But I would just say that, I'm still hoping that I'm still yet to make the best work in my career. So when you're at these things, just look at this is all our highlight reels too. And so I think just keep pushing yourself because I think to Rupert's point, creativity it's all in the how much passion you put in. It's all in the craft, and it doesn't take a lot of money to do the craft well.
Great. And Joey, how about you? Any advice?
I think you really, really understand the audience and the consumer or the gamer or the women who are playing in gaming or the men who are playing in gaming. It's really important to notice the small insights because sometimes it's the small insights that push to a pencil. And sometimes these insights need you to be in the space. Whether if you're talking to a community, really understand from a community perspective. If you're a gamer, then really understand from a gamer perspective. If you're a woman, then bring your perspective. And it's really important to see it from that lens rather than say, okay, this is what's going to make me win, therefore this is what I'll do. So maybe just look at it from a human perspective rather than follow award-winning formulas. It's very, very important, especially in the entertainment category, which kind of is a little closer to culture and to people than, say, advertising or brands.
Yeah. You were asking about submitting the work, right, as well?
Yeah, anyone who's producing and or submitting, I would say.
Yeah. I guess I'm going to get a little more tactical with submitting the work for awards. So one, and excuse my French, don't try to bullshit us into thinking this case was bigger than it was or something like that. As we can see with the Driving While Black case, sometimes it's a smaller idea in the sense of scale, but it's a great idea and it's absolutely possible to come up in the conversation to potentially win something. So the headline that Ad Age liked it isn't necessarily going to do it. And then the other piece around submitting and all the additional information you're submitting with the piece as well, be concise, make it specific, explain to me in like a very concise way, what was the brief, what did it do, and that, especially once a piece makes it to the jury room, once it makes it to the conversation, we're very happy to read on that, and we're very happy to dig into the piece and try to really understand it, and really try to get a good feeling as to what was your thinking behind it. So actually also putting some time into the submission text is super helpful as well, I'd say.
So those stats, clarify the stats, that's a great, because sometimes it's like 39% higher, and you're like, of what?
What, yeah.
Or how, like how did that happen? Because it sounds great when you first read it, and then but when you start digging in, it's like, oh, are we getting bamboozled?
Yeah.
I'll try and answer both. I think to young creatives and people making things, the first question that everybody asked on every single thing, and it was up on the wall the whole time in judging, is it inspiring? And I think that's the most important thing, right? If you're there's no point in making something that no one's going to care about watching. So it's that thing. It's like if you can't find the extra money, find the extra time. Just try and find anything to make it 20% better, even if you have to break it a little bit and put it back together. Like just find a way to make it better than if you're referencing something, try and make it interesting and different and better than the thing that you're referencing. And I think that is really to yourself, and then that will come across, because the individual story to you will affect a whole bunch of people in a different way. Like that story of a kid in the north, going to a rave for the first time, will affect people all around the world because they had a similar experience in whatever context, in whatever country, in whatever culture. And then the other thing is really properly look at the categories you're entering.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so many nice things a judge can do to move something into a category that they think it should have been in. And just really, it's not necessarily about money, because not everybody is going to win in direction, but there are people who will definitely win in editing and art direction if they can only afford to do a couple. So it's really have a think about what the absolute standout element of that piece is, and then maybe have a shot, sort of take a swing at something else as well.
I have one bit on that, on entering on the right category. I think we can save a lot of money by understanding categories, because Dreamcaster was actually entered in gaming, and we had a bit of a chat about it, because it's not technically gaming, right? So it's really also very important to study the categories, because it saves money.
It does, yeah.
And the broader the category, the more entrants there's going to be in it. So I always say that too. If you do fit into something that feels more niche, this is my little tip too. Anything that's like more of a breakout new category, they always receive less entrants. Good to know. So always look at what the new categories are for a show.
And everybody reads the notes that go with it, so make sure you write them properly and don't just copy and paste it across every category.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think owning your niche is such a good bit of advice anyway. I think we've got a few minutes left if anyone has any questions about any of the work we've seen or the judging process or anything else. We've got some mics roving about hopefully as well. I think there's a question in the middle.
This is not about judging process. I have a question from Dora. She mentioned something about trusted audience. It's smart enough to perceive things. I just wanted to ask, from a point of view of creation of work, how do you make your brand or your client believe in this idea or in this approach, particularly from a point of view that you should be inspired or be passionate, like she mentioned. So how do you make your brand or client believe in this perception? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's obviously a big one because I think it keeps us all busy. The question of how to manage our clients, how to have good relationship with our clients, how to convince them of work we believe in. One, and that's something I always say to my teams, bring the work you're actually excited about and like show it, present the thing that really does something for you. It helps to also convince a client. Two, we are in a service job. We need to build a good relationship with our client. That's part of the job as well. You can be the best creative in terms of ideas in the world. If you don't know how to sell it, this is probably not your industry. So learning how to understand people, talk to people, reading the room, that's also a big piece of that. And then I think I'm seeing a lot of great work with client relationships that are just longer lasting relationships. I think it's perfectly okay to do the piece that maybe isn't quite what you wanted to do, but then next meeting you come back with the thing that you're really excited about. Hey, do you want to try this? Look at these 3 other brands. They've done it. It worked. Let's see if we can do something similar. So just keep at it while remembering they're humans. They don't want to be told that they're wrong the whole time or that they don't get it. They want to be taken along on this journey, like build that relationship.
Any more questions?
I think there was someone over there.
Yeah, I think there might be. Pop your hands right up if you've got a question. Okay, I had another question actually about thinking, I guess, more on the innovation side of things, which I know we've touched on, but we were talking a bit backstage about some of the different countries that were kind of emerging and maybe standing out. I don't know if in gaming in particular, where is the kind of most exciting place at the moment for gaming?
I feel like you probably have a better idea for this than I would.
Well, Southeast Asia is doing well in gaming, and it's driven by mobile gaming. So there is a lot of, I think, excitement around mobile gaming because it's practically a console you carry everywhere, in every moment. I come from the Philippines, and it's interesting where people game there. It's during the long commute because our cities are jam-packed and we have really bad traffic. So the instances where people game, I think, are also great moments and insights for us to look into. Sometimes people eat chips when they play, or sometimes they stop to eat when they play, and that's important to take note of. So yeah, I mean, the more interesting places around Asia, I think in gaming, are kind of emerging.
I think I would say too, just that we talk about gamers as a monolith, and they're not. Yeah. So I think it really depends on the game, the type of game, and where the opportunity is to grow that audience, because it's really different. And even on The Sims, like who our growth audience was changed based on what we were launching or where we saw the opportunity. So that's a bigger game. But yeah, I think mobile gaming is still an opportunity. I think it's just because people have access. The other thing I would say is to recognize that sometimes, depending on the game, you saw some more indie style games here today, but depending, you might not be competing with other games, but you're competing for time. So maybe you're competing with TikTok, or maybe you're actually competing with Netflix, or like figure out who you're actually competing with, because I think it's very easy to pull like that comp and be like, oh, we're competing with this game. And it's not always a game. And that was something that came up a lot, on The Sims, is we're competing for creative people's time. So I think thinking about it a little bit more broadly in this like economy where time is the thing and people's attention is the thing, it's not always other games.
Great. I think that's a nice note to end on. And we've run out of time, sadly, so thank you all so much for sharing the work and for your insights. And thank you for joining us.